Welcome to What is Going for new thought from the edge of Each week on OMTimes flagship radio show, veteran broadcaster, author, and media consultant Sandie Sedgbeer conducts thought-provoking interviews with inspirational authors, artists, musicians, scientists, speakers, and filmmakers who are working at the point where spirituality and science meet consciousness at the very edge of Here is your host, Sandie Sedgbeer.
Hello. For centuries, pilgrims have walked the ancient pilgrimage route to Santiago de Compostela in Northwestern Spain as an act of penance. Today, many thousands of people are rediscovering these ancient paths as a means of walking into authenticity and self-discovery. Walking the Camino is widely regarded as an incredibly memorable and unique experience. Tonight, we're going to hear from a former news journalist whose first pilgrimage proved to be such a profoundly transformative experience that he's not only returned to walk the Camino 12 times since then, but has also established himself as a highly successful health and self-development mentor and entrepreneur who's trained thousands of people on personal and company health issues. Reino Gevers joins me tonight to talk about his latest book, Deep Walking for Body, Mind and Soul, in which he not only shares why walking is one of the most underrated and best ways of healing our body, mind and spirit, but also offers thought-provoking insights and key principles for stepping into authenticity and living a life of health and vitality in times of crisis and uncertainty. Reino Gevers, welcome.
Glad to be with you, Sandie.
Good to have you, Reino. You're doing what I've been promising myself for the last 10 years that I was going to do and haven't got around to yet.
Yes, that's what a lot of people say. You just have to take that step and just do it. At that time, 2007, when I walked the first time, it was a friend who recommended this, and I haven't looked back since. It's become more or less an addiction to do this walk every year now.
Yeah, I can understand why. So you grew up in the South African province of KwaZulu-Natal, where you spent much of your early childhood on your grandparents' farm learning about nature and the customs of the local Zulus. And you know quite a bit about hitting the wall and leaving home and transforming your life because you've done it more than once. So tell us a little bit of the backstory and what led you to that first Camino walk.
Well, at that time, this was 2007, and as you know, the media industry was going through a very rough patch at the time with the whole digital revolution. And I was a news junkie. I was working for an international news agency in Hamburg, Germany, and the whole environment was changing very much. I was going through a job and a marriage crisis at the same time. More or less hit the wall. I was feeling very exhausted and frustrated. And I just took a backpack and I did a walk. And of course, I took too much things with me. It was a huge physical challenge. I wasn't very fit. I didn't prepare very well. And of course, the first day I got horribly lost. And it took me hours to find the local hostel where I stayed, and it was at that point I was close to giving up, in fact. But thank God I continued.
So that first trip, I mean, had you decided that you were going to do the whole 500 miles, or were you going to do just part of it as a test to see?
The first time I just did part of it, and then the third time I actually walked the entire stretch, doing 5.5 weeks, which was a far more intense experience. But the first two walks were about 3 weeks, and that certainly motivated me to do to take a longer time out period, and that was the right thing to do. Most Camino experts really do recommend to do a 4 or 5 week stretch at the time, and of course I was very lucky at the time to be able to take that time out.
So, exploring the ancient pilgrimage paths is becoming a popular crash course in self-development. What happened to you on that first trip that made you want to go back a second time?
The key takeaway here is that you very much go through three phases. The old medieval pilgrims call it the first stretch is the path of crucifixion, where you go through very tough physical challenges, going up the Pyrenees mountains, and then the middle section, going through the Meseta, which is a lonely, long stretch. They call that the Valley of Death, walking through the Valley of Death, where you go through lots of emotional old stuff. And the amazing thing was that things came up that I thought I had dealt with years ago. A lot of my South African memories came back from the time I worked as a journalist during the transition to democracy, and saw a lot of those township wars as a reporter, and I thought I had dealt with it rationally as a reporter at the time, and that came up very vividly, and I had to deal with that. I had to deal with a lot of old relationship issues, some traumatic childhood memories of apartheid South Africa, and then an amazing thing happened, because they call that the path of resurrection, where you literally go into that empty space where you don't feel your body anymore. You feel relaxed, you feel at ease. All that baggage has like literally fallen off, and a hike of 12 miles or 20 kilometers a day becomes an easy stretch. You don't have to deal with that massive physical challenge you had to deal with at the beginning. Your body just becomes accustomed to walking long stretches at a time.
So, I mean, emotionally, going through those three stages must be really, quite disorienting in many respects. And I would imagine that you're really hitting the valleys as well as, the top of the mountain at times.
Exactly. And the amazing thing is that a lot of the pilgrims on the Camino have very much the same experience. And many of the people I met on the Camino are at some type of crossroad in their life. Many of them in the middle of life, having had to deal with maybe a divorce or a loss of a job or a close family member having died, and that's becoming that motivation to look for that empty space, to look for reorientation in life, for realignment, and or having had friends who've walked the Camino, who've recommended this as one way of self-healing. And I've really met some amazing people. One of them, for instance, was a guy from Scotland who walked from Edinburgh to Santiago literally only days after his wife died from cancer, which was his way of dealing with his depression.
Yeah, I can imagine that it is. It is a bit like walking through the valley of death, that you are going through a process of coming to terms with something, and I can imagine that must be really challenging. What was the difference for you in going for 2 to 3 weeks as to doing the whole trip all in one go? Was there a marked difference?
Absolutely. I think that breaking it off after 3 weeks, you're actually just starting to go into various processes. And for me, of course, it was several Caminos after each other that really brought that massive change in my life, where I decided at some point this job as a news reporter, as a news agent's journalist, was no longer fulfilling. The marriage I was in was dysfunctional. It wasn't a very happy marriage, and the place I was living in at the time, northern Germany near Hamburg, wasn't fulfilling. So basically, I changed my life on all levels, changed my career, changed the place I lived, changed everything.
That's pretty remarkable. You know, I've met a number of people who have walked the Camino, including the guy who writes all the guidebooks for it, and the people who made the recent really popular documentary. And I've read several books, and I have to say that your book is a standout because you're not just talking about your experience. You're talking about many people's experiences, but you're also talking about, all of the insights that one gets, and you're bringing in everything that is happening in life. In fact, it's a great guidebook to read for what's going on right now. Because if we're concerned about, the craziness in the world, the fear, the loneliness, the instability, you've got answers to all of it, and very sane answers in this particular book.
Well, this is the amazing thing that happened to me, because I grew up in South Africa, which at the time, which was a very religious Calvinist country, and as you might know, the apartheid government tried to justify the injustice through their Calvinist doctrine, and so I was very much off religion at one point, and then on the Camino I found what I would call experiential spirituality, which is something completely different than a belief religion. And I think this is what many people on the Camino are looking for. They're looking for that very personal, individual experience that I would also describe as soul purpose, finding direction. Where do I want to go in life? I might have 20 to 30 years left of my life. What do I want to do with it?
Yeah. You say that there is a difference between hiking and deep walking, and that, a deep walk, you're really finding a rhythm that is in synchronicity with the rhythm of the universe. That's a beautiful way to explain it.
Yes, the one is a sporting exercise. You can basically go hiking anywhere in nature and have an experience. But the deep walking experience, the pilgrimage walk, is something entirely different. Maybe you're looking for some type of answer, and I see it as just one of many methods. Some people choose meditation. Some people might choose yoga or some therapy as a way of healing. For me, it was this hiking, this deep pilgrimage walk. And I've now basically come to the point where I do one every year. I've just come back from the Via Francigena in Italy, which was quite a unique experience during the COVID times. And I did find a few people who are still walking. But this year has been, of course, on many levels, very, very different, where a lot of people simply couldn't walk. And I've been following the Camino forums very closely, and many people have postponed their trips to next year and are looking forward to doing their walk maybe 2023, 2024. It's becoming a very, very popular means of self-development and healing.
Yes, it is. Now, you say that how and where you walk makes all the difference. Tell us why.
Exactly. I think the Camino in Spain is something quite special because you feel that energy on these old trails where people have walked for centuries. You see old stone crosses where medieval pilgrims were buried who died on their way. And you see the ruins of these old Camino hospitals where they treated pilgrims who were ill and suffered from disease or injury. You see in the buildings, in the architecture, in the old chapels and churches, so many of these old signs of these ancient religious sites, which have something quite special that cannot really be explained. It's just a feeling one has of going and moving and walking into a very, very ancient energy.
Well, you make the point in the book, I mean, this is people have been walking the Camino for goodness knows how many years, hundreds. And you mentioned, that it's like Rupert Sheldrake's Morphic Field. There is a field there now, and walking it, you're literally stepping into that field, aren't you?
Absolutely. I would totally go with Rupert Sheldrake's field energy, which can only be experienced, can only be felt. One cannot really rationally explain what's happening, and also what happens to people who start the walk maybe as a sporting adventure, and then end their walk as a pilgrim, and end that walk an entirely different person.
Yeah, I'm sure. You're listening to What Is Going On. I'm Sandie Sedgbeer, and my guest today is author, mentor, and consultant Reino Gevers, whose latest book, Deep Walking for Body, Mind and Soul, draws from his many pilgrimage walks on the Camino de Santiago across Spain to share some key insights and principles for living a life of health, strength and vitality. We'll be back with more from Reino Gevers after the break.
The future of internet radio is here. OMTimes Radio, IOM FM.
Ascending Hearts is no ordinary dating site, but a spiritual dating site with a purpose, to link you with your soulmate. We engineer the serendipity so you can trust that you will attune with someone that has the same matching vibration as you. Ascending Hearts, the conscious dating site for the spiritually aware. Try Ascending Hearts for free. AscendingHearts.com.
More than 24 million Americans have an autoimmune disorder, and that number continues to grow. I'm Sharon Saylor, and I'm one of those 24 million. To put that number in perspective, cancer affects about 9 million and heart disease up to 22 million. That's why I've brought together top experts and those thriving regardless of their diagnosis to bring you the latest, most up-to-date information. Join me, Sharon Saylor, Friday night, 7 p.m. Eastern, for the Autoimmune Hour on Life Interrupted Radio to find out how to live your life uninterrupted.
Hello, I'm Sandie Sedgbeer, host of OMTimes' flagship radio show, What Is Going On. As a long-time editor, book judge, spiritual magazine publisher and radio host, I've read thousands of books and interviewed hundreds of authors and teachers. So I know what's worth reading and what isn't. Now, with the spiritual book market growing increasingly crowded, more and more people are seeking my help in finding the authentic voices, the empowering tools, and the genuine skip the BS guidance that will make the most difference to their spiritual development. So I decided to make it easier by bringing my knowledge, experience, and considerable network of contacts together in the No BS Spiritual Book Club. There are no ads, no joining fees, no obligations, and no BS. Just an ever-growing library compiled by recognizable and respected names of the 10 best books that help them the most on their journeys. Plus, free book excerpts, audios, and live video interviews where you can quiz them about their spiritual journeys and their 10 best list choices. Your time and money are valuable, your spiritual journey even more so. If you're looking for genuine guidance from people who've walked this path before you, check out Sedgbeer.com. Click on the No BS Spiritual Book Club tab and join the club. That's Sedgbeer.com, SEDGBEER.com. I'll see you there.
These are the sounds of a dinner that almost didn't happen. A dinner now served, thanks to people like you. Due to COVID-19, 17 million more Americans may face hunger. Feeding America is helping our neighbors in need. And if you're able, you can too. Donations are being accepted at feedingamerica.org/coronavirus. Brought to you by the Ad Council and Feeding America, 200 food banks strong.
Welcome back. Reino Gevers, you talk about walking the Camino as a crash course in life's key lessons. What are the most important lessons that you learned?
Well, I think the major problem we have in society today is that we are confronted with these thousands of daily distractions. And I think finding this quiet space in nature, I think is the key lesson. And realigning with the powers of nature and opening the senses to the sounds and smells and whispers of the universe. I think that is the key takeaway I personally have experienced.
I was looking on your website earlier at some of your blog posts, and all of them, they offer so much clarity and wisdom about what's happening in society today. And of course, we all know that society seems to be falling apart at the seams, so to speak, or being ripped apart. And you've really got some really interesting topics that you're positing there. You talk about us having lost the ability to communicate and the pseudo-beliefs filling the void of religion. What do you think?
Yes, absolutely. I think a lot of what we're seeing at the moment is trying to fill that void. A lot of people are extremely confused, and I think there is an inherent longing for something spiritual in every human life, because I firmly believe that we do come onto this earth with a purpose, to evolve, to grow, and that life throws those lessons at us, and that every generation has certain challenges to deal with. I think the past generation certainly was all about dealing with ideology, or the different ideologies, the isms, overcoming that. And today I think the millennial generation is certainly having to deal with all these distractive forces, the digital issue that pull people in all sorts of directions. And all the more important, I feel, that we need that quiet space, and more people are going on a search, and I found that, for instance, on the Camino, when I initially did my first walk, most of them were around their 50s, late 50s. A lot of them were pensioners. And lately I found lots of younger people walking in the early 20s, mid-20s, with the same type of questions. This I find quite amazing.
Yeah. I mean, you write quite eloquently about, I mean, you as a news journalist, you were there when the Berlin Wall came down. You've met several people during your career, including Nelson Mandela, and you write about the things that we were doing back then. You know, we were taking walls down, we were opening ourselves up to one another, and now all of a sudden we seem to be closing the doors, and we're going back to kind of tribalism. Everybody's wanting to stay in their own little corner, and it's all about me and my tribe, and not about the rest of us. And one of the things that you make very clear is how this is all part of, nothing stays the same, but it's all part of evolution. And I think right now people are finding it very hard to see what is happening as part of a natural evolution. It's very scary.
It is very scary, and I think there's a lot of fear out there, and because there's a lot of fear out there, that turns into anger, it turns into disorientation. People like easy answer to very complex problems. As you say, the tribalism is increasing, but I think on a higher level, this is part of the pushback we always see when society goes through major changes. And I think looking at it long term, I'm very optimistic because we are moving into an era of raised consciousness. I'm pretty sure about this. I just feel it, and a lot of us are feeling it, that of course on the road, on the path to higher consciousness, we are going to have a lot of pushback from the darker side, the collective shadow side of humanity, which comes out of that sphere of fear and anxiety and of toxic emotion. And what we're seeing, of course, in America at the moment very much illustrates what is happening on a global level.
Yes, indeed. I want to talk a little bit about your first book, which was Walking on Edge, A Pilgrimage to Santiago. You wrote that as a novel, more or less, a story, a metaphor, a parable. Tell us a little bit about that and why you chose to write it that way.
Well, that story is based on a long walk I had with a fellow pilgrim from America, half Indian and half Spanish, and I learned a lot from this guy, and I thought that he's one of the characters and based also on another character, and I mixed the two, and I thought I'd try it as a novel, and it was also working through my own issues from those first 3-4 longer walks I did. And I did call it Walking on Edge because I was very much walking on edge at the same time, not knowing at the time in which direction do you really want to go, what journey are you taking on life's long journey. The profound experience I had was that, of course, we are all on a journey, but the lesson for me at the time then was you have to come back from your journey and you have to spread the word about the journey so that more people can also have the same type of experience.
I mean, it had some interesting reviews. It is the kind of story, in essence, like with, The Alchemist. It's somebody on a journey. It's somebody who's looking for something, somebody whose life is not going well. A little bit like Way of the Peaceful Warrior by Dan Millman. That kind of ilk. Walking, a young man whose marriage is all but dead, and walking in the company of somebody who is wiser than he is, and what he learns along the way. And one of the reviews said it could have easily turned into spiritual psychobabble, but you did a great job of keeping it very real and making the characters, emerge in their own right. So what sort of reaction have you had to that book?
It's been different reactions. Of course, the main feedback I've been getting was that it was different from the normal type of Camino book. There are hundreds of books on the Camino. Lots of them are travelogues, they are travel diaries. I wanted to get a bit away from that. My real mission is to spread the word about what people really want on the Camino. And I think one of the main needs here is the finding meaning, finding purpose, this what I call experiential spirituality, which is so different from practiced religion, which of course is going through a crisis like most institutions. But the need for identity, for soul purpose, for meaning in life, that will always stay.
Yeah, I've talked to people, and there's such a high at the end of it, and some people are so so transformed, that they want to go home and they want to change everything, and they want to be an evangelist about this and what they've learned and what they've discovered. What do you think it's like to come back from an experience like that, to be facing experiences like the one that we're in the middle of? Would that experience make somebody stronger?
An interesting question, because a friend of mine is actually coaching people on their journey after the journey. Some people really fall into a crisis because what they experience on the Camino is very different from their daily reality, and of course life is not like that, because you do have to face your daily reality when coming back home. You do have to change things. You do have to take action. You can't fall back into old routines. Some people are scared. They are scared of changing things in their life, and then fall into what I call this permanent melancholy, and then the sadness becomes so big that they eventually do move out of the comfort zone, like I did, and then change things. And I'm certainly, looking at it in retrospect, very happy that I did move out of the comfort zone, because sometimes the comfort zone gets very, very uncomfortable.
Yes, it does. It does indeed. I'm just curious, you come out of that on a high, and if you let's say somebody came out of that, 6 months ago, just as we're going into lockdown in many countries, and then they come back into a world that is vastly altered, how would that impact the resolve that one must have after such a numinous experience? Does it just destroy it all and make you think, wow, this is, I can't do this on my own. I can't change the world on my own. It's got too many problems.
Exactly, we can't. I mean, we have to move away from that ego. The ego wants to change everything individually, but we are, of course, a collective humanity. And I think if we look at it from that perspective, it's easier to deal with it. It's an interesting point, because the experience you have on the Camino is you meet people, you become friends with total strangers, and you bond very closely with these people. You walk every day, you walk alone, and you walk together, you share meals together. And then, of course, you might come home, you're alone in your apartment, you feel lonely, you miss that community, that feeling of community and camaraderie. And then the old issues come back. But the real lesson from the Camino is to transmute those lessons learned into your daily life, because that's what it's really about.
Yeah. So it's probably very hard to be walking and learning those lessons, but then to come back and have to continue to apply those lessons must be quite a challenge.
That is absolutely the hardest part of it, which I also found the hardest part of it. My way of dealing with it was to just continue walking, finding small places in nature to revive that Camino feeling. And I've got a dog, which makes things easier, because the dog tells you all the time it's time for a walk. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I do take time out every day to do my walk, and that does keep the energy up at a certain level. Of course, if you on that high, walking every day, those 12 to 13 miles, you on a different energy level, definitely. Because in your daily life, you are just confronted with all those daily distractions. You're having to deal with all those voices of negativity that pound at your mind all the time, which you don't have on the Camino, because you can really escape from all that. And a lot of people I know who've walked, they literally don't take any electronic equipment with them, no iPhone or anything, just to go into really go into that experience.
Well, then it's such a stark contrast when you come out of it. I mean, it's easy, I would imagine, in a setting, walking the Camino with like-minded people. Everybody that you meet is, got the same kind of goal in sight. So it's easy to fall into that place of introspection and anticipation of epiphanies. And then you come out of it and you're just bombarded in the world, and it must be very hard to hold that.
Oh, absolutely. I think it's probably much the same experience that people have after going into a retreat for a couple of weeks and then going back into that world with all that noise and all that distraction. I had a similar experience after doing the old part, the Camino Primitivo, up in the mountains, where I was walking alone for must have been about a week. I was almost completely alone, and I walked into a cafe and I saw this blaring TV, which was literally a shock to my system, and I had quite a hard time dealing with it.
Does it make you want to be
just
a hermit?
goes to show what our system has to deal with every day. It's become so immune to all these pounding noises that bombard us all the time.
I'm certain of that. It must be very hard to have to deal with that. You're listening to What Is Going On. I'm Sandie Sedgbeer, and I'm speaking with author, mentor, speaker, and power body mind consultant Reino Gevers about his book Deep Walking for Body, Mind and Soul, in which he shares the powerful body, mind and spirit benefits of deep walking and the insights, wisdom and key principles he learned on his many pilgrimage walks on the Camino de Santiago. We'll be back with more from Reino Gevers after the break.
The cutting edge of conscious radio, OMTimes Radio, IOM FM. Being a radio host on IOM FM allows you to build your show on a rich platform with the power of the internet to fulfill your outreach goals and connect with a very specialized and global online audience, unlimited by time and distance. OMTimes Radio will provide you with web relevance, a recognizable conscious brand, and with the standard of excellence that has accompanied every single OMTimes endeavor. Host your show with OMTimes Radio Network.
Hello, I'm Lisa Berry. Join me every Monday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time for Light on Living, a chance to see new, hear different, and feel more as I shine the spotlight on all the ways to lighten the load of life's challenges. Light on Living is your link to that new way you're looking for, that new understanding that will enhance your life, and that positive connection that will support your growth. So join me and you'll gain insight and start to see things in a new way that motivates you.
I am Fidel Mshombo. I was born in a city called Bukavu in the Congo. We were a loving family, and then, boom, everything that I had disappeared in a single day. People think that when you are a refugee and they resettle you to America and all your problems are done. They don't understand that that's the beginning of everything. I was not born a refugee. I was made one.
It's time we welcome refugee families with open arms. Learn more at embracerefugees.org, brought to you by the Ad Council.
Welcome back. Reino Gevers, I want to talk about your third book, or The Yield and Be Overcome. I don't know when in the sequence of books, it may have been the second one that was published, but in that particular book, you talk about how change can positively impact our lives. And you talk about the Chinese teaching of the 5 elements and how we can see these changes as a principle of life. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yes, that was actually my first book. I have done a training as a Tai Chi teacher, and it emerged very much from that teaching on the 5-element philosophy, and I find it particularly interesting in our times today to look at what's happening in the external world from that perspective, because as you might know, the 5-element philosophy is used very much in Chinese medicine, traditional Chinese medicine. And if you look at it on a social, political level, what we're seeing at the moment is an explosion of the fire element of all those pent-up emotions coming and going, and the short-term concentration levels, the constant urge to find something new, this almost panicky type of psychological setup of finding external means to satisfy an inner urge. That all falls into a fire element that is out of balance, and we definitely need more of the cooling water elements to cool down those emotions, to bring them back into balance. And the yin and yang, of course, is always this tug and pull, trying to find a balance, nature trying to find a balance between different elements. And when something is out of kilter, out of balance, nature always finds a way of bringing everything back into balance. It's part of the whole evolutionary process. Sometimes you just have things swinging in one direction and then completely into the other direction, and then at some point finding a middle ground again.
And it's interesting, isn't it, that life is constantly changing. We are constantly changing, and yet the one thing many people fear is change.
Yeah, because we are animals who want things to be ordered, want things to be comfortable. We don't have a protective skin to protect us, so having that fear has always been something we needed to survive as a species. But of course, the other side of the coin is that it becomes very irrational if we, especially if we're under stress. We know that the brain just shuts off its whole thinking process and falls into a complete fight and fear mode.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because, we do fear change and we do resist change. And yet, not all change is bad. And, it's a natural inclination, a human trait, if you like, to try and make yourself as comfortable as possible in whatever circumstances you are. So even in the midst of change, it's not going to be scary for long.
No, and if you look at it from the perspective of evolution, the species that doesn't adapt, that doesn't change, that becomes extinct. And we as a humanity need to learn to adapt. We need to learn to adapt to nature's ways. In the past hundreds, thousands of years, we've conquered nature. We've exploited nature. We have to now go into, and that's what I call the raised consciousness level, we have to go into restoration. We have to heal our natural habitats. We have to become part again of nature. And this is something that you learn as you dive into nature and become aware of the sounds of birds, and you see the small insects interacting with the bigger animals and the plants, and this is something that you experience in the African bush, where every beetle, every mammal, every plant interacts with the other, and we are also part of that. We aren't separate from it.
No, we've got a lot to learn from nature. You offer a mentoring program, which is all about finding soul purpose, meaning, and building resilience and mind setting. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yes, I take up many of the cues that I've learned on the Camino. I do that in personal one-to-one coachings, and I do it in retreats. Lots of it is health management. It starts with the health management program on lifting your your vibrational energy to a higher level. It starts with exercise, with nutrition, with mind-setting exercises. It's those three levels that all come into play, and finding that quiet space of schooling your awareness sensory levels so that you yourself find your own soul purpose. I'm not there as a mentor. That's why I call it mentoring, to tell you where to go. I just assist you in improving your vibrational energy so that you can open your senses to where you as an individual want to go.
You've also got an online course called Stepping into Authenticity, Living to Be. What do you mean by that?
Yes, that's exactly what it is. Stepping into authenticity is like that, walking off that old baggage that you carry. Everyone carries a load, and walking off that baggage opens those inner avenues to the whispers of the universe that is telling you where you want to go. And as soon as those pathways open, things almost fall into place naturally. Whenever you confront resistance, it means either two things: you're on the wrong path, or you have to change your ways and adapt, and or you have a lesson still to learn.
You write about resilience and what makes us strong through times of crisis. I mean, if ever we needed, all of our skills, resilience as well as many other skills, it is now. So tell me what you mean and what you offer, what you can share with us that could help us there.
I think the first step really is to stand guard at the doorway of your mind. More than ever, we have to stand guard at the doorway of our mind, because especially what we're seeing in America at the moment with the elections shows us, all the fake news, all the lies, all these ideologies pulling us into certain directions, all the negativity, basically. As soon as you fall into that trap, and I'm talking now as an old newsman, because journalists, of course, always see then the bad news first, not the good news, which is also happening at the same time. But it does something to your psyche. It does something to you. And at some point, you just have to shut all that noise off. You have to switch off. And I'm at a point where I really try to reduce that dosage of news to a very low level, because I've realized it really does something to me.
Yeah, it does. I mean, indeed. And, I was interested in one of the pieces that you wrote. You were talking about communication and all the hatred and the vitriol that's spilling out on social media, and how studies have actually been done on the way that people communicate and the words they use, and those that use, some of those very negative terms, actually, it does affect them physically and psychologically.
Yes. We know this from neurological research that certain words do something to your body. We know that hate speech weakens your immune system. So if you spread hate messages, what does it do to you? If you spread positive vibes, for instance, practicing a prayer or a mantra and repeating that mantra several hundred times, maybe as you walk, that does something to you. That improves your vibrational energy 100-fold to what it is if you read, say, a hate speech article, or or get exposed to some news item or some social media item that of course catapults you into some type of negative sphere.
And everybody, as you said in one of your blogs, everybody is playing the blame game at the moment. They're all blaming it on something or someone else, whatever is going wrong in the world and in their own lives. What advice would you offer to people who are getting, really concerned about, all of the things that are happening to them that are beyond their control and are falling into the trap of blame?
Yes, I mean, these are all the toxic emotions, all the ego emotions at play at the moment. It's a challenge. It really is. It's a challenge for every individual. It's a challenge for our societies to go into that other energy, the positive energy. And as I said before, it's part of the pushback we're seeing at the moment. We are having to go through burnt ground before we see the light.
Yeah,
it's also lessons we have to learn as a humanity. I think also that the whole COVID pandemic is teaching us, is trying to teach us something as a humanity. We have to fall back into becoming aware of nature's ways, and that we have a responsibility as a humanity. And if we don't learn that lesson, we will become extinct as a species. I find Richard Attenborough's documentary is very interesting in this respect, who goes in very much the same vein.
Yeah, indeed. Of all the people you've met on your 12 journeys, is it so far, on the Camino?
Yeah, I just did my 13th one now.
Okay. Tell us about some of the people that really impressed you the most or made a big impact on you.
There are so many. I, for instance, remember a father, a former French army officer. He was walking with two donkeys. And so I got talking to him, and he said, and asked him why he was walking with two donkeys, and he explained to me that his daughter had died from cancer, leaving two grandchildren, and that her last wish was to walk the Camino with a donkey. And before she died, he promised her that he would do this for her. It was a very moving experience.
Why did she want to walk it with a donkey?
Some people do, just to maybe to have that experience of walking with an animal, and because many medieval pilgrims walked with donkeys. Every individual has a different motivation. Some people walk with a dog. And some people ride it on horseback. Lots of people go on a bicycle, which I think is giving you a very limited experience of the Camino. But it's for every individual, it's different. There's another story of a woman, an elderly German woman who fell on her second day of walking, and she hurt herself quite badly. She had to be carried to the next town by two other pilgrims. And then a local healer from the village came and asked her, "You need to think about why you fell. If you know the answer, you will be able to walk again tomorrow." And she mulled over this for the whole night, and she said, "Well, I'm very unhappy with my husband. I have to leave my husband." She was married to him for almost 40 years. And she got that sorted for herself, and the next day she could walk. And apart from that, she had quite a few medical issues to deal with. She had gone through cancer therapy, and then I met her again some years later, and she was really good. She was looking very good. One example of the Camino having healed her, or where she had found answers for herself on the Camino.
Yeah, I've heard so many stories of people who, as I said, it's a transformative experience, and everybody transforms in a different way. I can't imagine that anybody ever gets to the end and says, "Oh, well, that was a waste of time."
You do have some individuals who say, well, I didn't see God in the Camino, or I didn't have that great spiritual experience. I think it also depends very much on where you're at before you actually start the Camino. That also plays a crucial part, and what answers you're looking for. Every individual has a different experience, but I would say the majority of people I've met on the Camino do come back as different people.
Yeah. Well, Reino Gevers, thank you so much for joining us today and telling us about your experience of the Camino, and also some of these key principles which I think are so important for us to bear in mind as we move through this transitional time.
It was a great pleasure, Sandie.
Thank you. So, Deep Walking for Body, Mind and Soul is published by Morgan James. You can learn more about Reino Gevers' book, program, mentoring and his retreats, and enjoy the wisdom that he shares on his blog at reinogevers.com. That's REINOGEVERS.com. I'm Sandie Sedgbeer. You can learn more about me and the No BS Spiritual Book Club at my website, sedgbeer.com. In the meantime, I'll be back with another edition of What is Going On at the same time next week. Till then, it's goodbye from me.